Authority of Singapore, Your Excellency Kamal Vaswani, Ambassador of Singapore to the UAE, distinguished guests, a very good morning to all of you, and thank you for joining us at the launch of this year's Singapore Pavilion. My name is Audrey, and I'm from the National University of Singapore Centre for Nature-Based Climate Solutions, and I'll be your MC for today. We have an exciting lineup for today's launch event, starting with a video message from Ms. Grace Fu, Minister for Sustainability and the Environment, followed by some opening remarks from Mr. Ravi Menon, MD of the Monetary Authority of Singapore, followed by a very exciting panel discussion on accelerating collective climate action for net zero. So without further ado, let's begin with Minister's recorded message.
The Singapore Pavilion is back at COP28, and this time, bigger and bolder. To us, the Singapore Pavilion is not just a physical space. It represents our commitment to climate action. It allows Team Singapore, made up of the public, private, and people sectors, to show what we are doing collectively to tackle the challenge of our generation. Singapore is a small city-state, lacking in renewable energy. We are a low-lying island that is acutely vulnerable to the threat of rising sea levels. We are an urbanized city near the equator, susceptible to rising temperatures. And therefore, Singapore recognizes climate change as an existential threat. Despite our circumstances that make it more difficult for us to decarbonize quickly, we know the urgency of mitigating climate change. Last year, we raised our national climate target to achieve net zero emissions by 2050 as part of our long-term low emissions development strategy. Our pledges are backed with plans, and that is the typical Singapore way. Among our efforts, we are maximizing solar energy deployment, connecting to regional power grids, and switching to greener transportation. The government cannot solve climate change alone. It is especially important for Singapore to spark innovation, leverage technology, and rally stakeholders to achieve our climate goals. We need scientists, innovators, corporates, investors, and civil society to work together. You hold the ability to unlock the solutions needed to mitigate climate change and build a climate-resilient future. I look forward to the many exciting announcements, innovation showcases, and insightful discussions that our partners will be staging at our pavilion. Finally, our decarbonization efforts rely on international cooperation. We derive strength from our willingness to collaborate with the world, and we bring value to our partners with our position as a maritime, aviation, and finance node in Asia. With your contributions and support, we can all aspire to make a difference beyond our borders. The Singapore Pavilion will bring together global leaders from diverse sectors and professions to foster collaboration. We look forward to welcoming guests and visitors from all over the world over the next 2 weeks. It is here that we hope to forge new partnerships and accelerate climate action together. Thank you for supporting the Singapore Pavilion.
Thank you, Minister Grace Fu, for highlighting Singapore's commitment to accelerating collective climate action and the importance of partnerships. We all know that climate change is an endeavour that requires all hands on deck. Next, it is my pleasure to invite Mr. Ravi Menon, Managing Director of the Monetary Authority of Singapore, to deliver opening remarks at the Singapore Pavilion. MD, please.
Thank you, and very good morning to everyone here. Good to see several familiar faces. Thank you for coming. Thanks for the support. And we apologize for the temperature. We were not trying to mimic global warming. Just happens to be a warm day. So please bear with us. But it's great to see everyone here together. And we've got a great lineup of events over the next few weeks. So, first off, Your Excellency, Kamal Vaswani, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. And as I said, welcome to the Singapore Pavilion, COP28, Dubai. Every COP is more important than the previous one. Not because who organizes it, simply because with each passing year, the world is running out of time. According to the latest IPCC report, the world needs to reduce global greenhouse gas emissions by 43% by 2030 from 2019 levels, 43%. And this is what's necessary to keep temperatures from rising above 1.5 degrees Celsius. Amidst all the excitement and celebration, it's useful to have these numbers firmly planted in our heads because that's a task ahead. Another fact, greenhouse gas emissions are still rising, not falling. So we need to reduce by 43% by 2030, which is 7 years away, but emissions are still rising. Average global temperatures are already 1.1 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. You've got only 0.4 degrees Celsius to go. So the negotiations that take place at COP to foster new climate commitments are critically important. But it's actually out here in pavilions like these where commitments are turned into action and where individual contributions coalesce into collective impact. And the Singapore Pavilion aims to be such a forum for collective action to catalyze climate solutions. Later today, Singapore will co-host with Bain and Company the inaugural Climate Leaders Assembly. We have convened leaders from the private and people sectors to brainstorm ideas and develop initiatives. Singapore, as you heard, and as you know very well, is committed to achieving net zero emissions by 2050. But our contribution to climate action is not just to remove that 0.1% of global greenhouse gas emissions that we account for. More importantly, as Minister Grace Fu just said, it is to collaborate with partners from around the world to galvanize resources and incubate and scale solutions for climate action. That's where Singapore's real impact is. And Singapore is well placed to do this. We are an aviation and maritime hub. Singapore can play a role in developing the infrastructure and networks for promoting cleaner fuels and decarbonization in global aviation and in global maritime. We are an international financial center. Singapore can help to mobilize the financing that's necessary to support Asia's transition towards a low-carbon future. We are an urban metropolis. Singapore can be a test bed for innovative solutions, ranging from measures to reduce urban heat to fortifying defenses against rising sea levels. So the Pavilion's program will span these three big themes: decarbonization, finance, and resilience. Let me start with decarbonization. So as a major air and sea transportation hub, Singapore can play a key role in regional and global efforts to reduce emissions in international aviation and maritime. In aviation, Singapore is taking a comprehensive approach to reducing emissions across airport, airline, and air traffic management activities. We are reviewing the policies and support that is required for the adoption and production of sustainable aviation fuels, SAF, in Singapore. And this includes exploring mechanisms to promote the offtake of SAF at Changi Airport. Greater use of SAF, sustainable aviation fuels, will contribute towards the International Civil Aviation Authority's goal to reduce emissions in international aviation by 5% by 2030 through the use of cleaner energy. Maritime sector. Singapore is promoting various clean marine fuels for bunkering. Now, we're doing this through pilot trials and demonstration projects for fuels like bio-LNG, methanol, and ammonia. The Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore MPA, has been collaborating with international ports and partners in the value chain, such as shipping lines, fuel suppliers, and research institutes, to promote what's called green and digital shipping corridors. These corridors support the transition to zero and near zero emission fuels by building up the necessary supply, the infrastructure, and regulatory regime. Now, MPA currently has 2 such active corridors, with the Port of Rotterdam, as well as the Port of Los Angeles and Port of Long Beach. And now we look forward to sharing some of our learnings from these experiences and initiatives later this week at this pavilion. So that's decarbonization. Second, finance. Some $3 trillion of financing is needed each year for the Asia-Pacific region to reach net zero by 2050. As a leading international financial center, Singapore can play an important role in mobilizing this capital. Our blueprint for doing this is the Finance for Net Zero Action Plan, launched by the Monetary Authority of Singapore in partnership with the financial industry. Its aim is to mobilize financing to catalyze Asia's net zero transition. This effort will require much innovation and collaboration. In the coming days, you will hear of 2 financing mechanisms that can play a key role in supporting decarbonization solutions, particularly those which are just marginally bankable or uneconomical today. The first, blended finance. I spoke about this last year, but there's more to say about it. Blended finance is basically about bringing together various partners from the public and private sectors to contribute in different but synergistic ways to make green and transition projects bankable. So concessionary capital, coupled with technical assistance and regulatory certainty, can help to reduce risks and crowd in multiples of private commercial capital. The second innovation we're exploring, transition carbon credits. Now, carbon credits generated from the verifiable reduction of emissions can improve the economic case for many transition projects. It is a vital part of the solution as we transit towards net zero, carbon credits. So MAS has published a working paper with McKinsey that outlines how high integrity carbon credits can be generated from future emissions reductions due to the early retirement of coal-generated power plants and replacing them with cleaner energy sources. Such transition credits, if they can be made to work, can potentially enable a broader market-driven financing mechanism to help crowd in private capital. We'll be sharing concrete initiatives on scaling these financing mechanisms and announcing new partnerships to take them forward over the next few days. Third is resilience. I spoke about decarbonization, finance. Third is resilience. With long coastlines and heavily populated, low-lying areas, Southeast Asia, including Singapore, is one of the world's most vulnerable regions to extreme weather and rising sea levels. Singapore can play a useful role in pioneering and scaling urban solutions to build up climate resilience. Let me just highlight a few examples. To address rising temperatures, we have piloted the use of cool paint on flat facades to reduce the amount of heat they absorb in the day and emit at night. We are exploring the use of smart sensors to collect wind flow data for more robust environmental models, which enables achieving cooler temperatures with better natural ventilation. Addressing sea level rise and heavy rainfall, we are strengthening local capabilities and expertise. We have set up a Coastal Protection and Flood Resilience Institute, CFI, in Singapore. Now, this is a multi-institutional, multidisciplinary research center to advance domain knowledge as well as explore innovative solutions. disruptions in food supply due to climate change. We have taken steps to build a more sustainable and resilient agri-food system. For example, we have plans for a high-tech agri-food hub that can raise food production capacity up to 3 times current levels. This future hub will harness technology for efficient waste management and reduce water consumption by capturing rainwater for farming use. In short, this Singapore Pavilion main aim is to foster active partnerships across businesses, research institutes, civil society, youth groups, and government agencies for a concerted effort to address climate change. We aim to connect across countries and across industrial sectors to drive change and create impact. I invite all of you to be a part of this collaborative effort for collective action and wish you a fruitful experience at the Singapore Pavilion and at COP28. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, MD Ravi, for that speech which highlighted the key themes and objectives of this year's Singapore Pavilion. We would now like to invite you, MD Ravi, to officially launch the Singapore Pavilion. We'll be giving you an iPad to activate the launch video. May I invite you to swipe up to launch the pavilion?
Look at what we've built. What's ours to protect? What's happening around us? Look at everything we could lose. But we're acting now to preserve our way of life, to secure our future. Because our Earth matters. So how can we do better? How can we go further? We've planted the seeds, spread the word, laid our plans, experimented, reflected, invested. Today, we're at a critical juncture. So, let's ask ourselves, what more can we do?
So I believe this video, as well as MD Ravi's speech, contextualizes the events for the next 2 weeks and invites us all to reflect on what more can we do to accelerate collective climate action as we conclude the first ever global stocktake here at COP28. With that, the next item on our lineup is a panel discussion on accelerating collective climate action towards net zero. And may I please invite Ms. Fang Yulin, partner at PwC, up on stage. Yulin leads the Sustainability and Climate Change practice across PwC Singapore, and she will be our moderator for today's discussion. May I invite the rest of our panelists on stage, Ms. Cheryl Chan, Prof. Winston Chow, Ms. Samantha Tien, and Mr. Benedict Chia.
Lights are very bright, I noticed.
It is very bright. Well, a very good morning to everybody, and welcome to the Singapore Pavilion. I'm so happy that we all made it here. And I just wanted to just say that I was just reflecting about the 2 speeches by Minister Grace Fu and also MD Ravi. I just thought the few words that really came out was around collaboration, was around how do we actually make our commitments turn into action as well. And MD Ravi said it very, very nicely, which is that through the passage of time, this gets more and more important. And the areas, right, that we can be taking more action in potentially could be in decarbonization, finance, and also resilience as well. And all actors in society can play their part. And talking about actors in the ecosystem, I have lovely panelists here today, which of course are from diverse groups who will be able to add to the diverse conversations as well. So I'm going to start with the left. Ms. Cheryl Chen, Group Chief Strategy and Sustainability Officer at Singapore Technologies Engineering, or ST Engineering. I was just talking to Cheryl just now, and I really liked how you combine strategy with sustainability as well. I think that's such a good initiative to combine the both. And the next up, we've got Winston Chow, co-chair of, I love saying this, IPCC WG2. Yeah, IPCC
Special
WG.
code,
Yeah, co-chair, okay, co-chair, which is working group 2 of the IPCC, and also a professor at the Singapore Management University. And of course, Ms. Samantha Thien, who is from Sustainable. I get what you did. You did sustainability and C together. I get it. Okay, so Sustainable. Yes, thank you. And that's a social enterprise on marine conservation. And last but not least, Mr. Benedict Chia, Director General, Climate Change, Singapore Government's National Climate Change Secretariat. So welcome, everybody. So I'm going to ask a first question. Let me position myself first. Okay. And this panel is about accelerating collective climate action. And all of you play different parts in society, whether it's from the private sector, the scientific sector, social enterprise, and also government as well. And maybe you can just tell the audience and those online as well, what do you think is your role in this as climate actors contributing to accelerating climate action? I know it's a very heavy question, but Cheryl, if you can start. Go ahead.
Thanks, Yulin, and a very good morning, everyone. So to begin with, I think my role in ST Engineering, I'm quite blessed to be given 2 roles at the same time, strategy and sustainability. Well, the key thing about this is every time when you begin a particular product or things, you must start with the strategy and the end game in mind. And I think when you actually embed sustainability as part of strategy, it makes it impactful and effective because you can operationalize, you can also understand what are the end outcomes. And therefore, I think they go hand in hand instead of taking it as an afterthought. So I think that's important because in SC Engineering we've made, so our sustainability means 2 things. A 2-pronged approach, one, doing our part, and the other one, which is about enabling our customers. So on the first, when it comes to doing our part, we've made a commitment that said by 2030, we'll halve our absolute GHG emissions. Well, we're on track. I hope we can accelerate that. So there will be a lot of efforts that we have to take in order to enable this. But the second part, enabling our customers, is actually the most exciting piece for me. Because it not only meant we could find green technologies, put innovation towards it, to enable our customers' journey. But the key is, how do you make economic sense such that it's also profitable? I think that's always important for every organization. So with many things that we do, I think technology and innovation are fundamental in engineering. Me being an engineer by training, I think that's what we can bring to bear with a lot of partnerships out there.
So what you're saying is that actually sustainability and strategy is super important. And I think you did mention just now that actually in the near term is quite difficult in terms of decarbonization. But there are other ways, that we can further contribute as well, particularly the ecosystem. You talked about your clients as well, or your customers. So that's also very important, right? So thanks a lot, Cheryl. Winston, over to you.
Thanks, Yulin. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone online. It's good to be here to see so many old friends and new friends here in the Singapore Pavilion. So what I do, I have multiple hats. So one hat I wear is, as you said, the co-chair of Working Group 2 in the IPCC. It's seemingly simple, a very simple job of trying to get the best scientific minds to sit down and try not to make the world panic after what we've written in AR6. As MD Ravi has said, he focused so much on the urgency aspect. We really don't have that much time, and the window of opportunity for climate resilience is shortening very rapidly. So how we get to do that, the challenge is, as a Singaporean being part of the IPCC, is to leverage my experience working in this country that has done so much in the scientific realm in terms of developing actionable science-based research that informs policy, informs different sectors, including the finance sector or the built environment sector, to make decisions that enhance climate resilience. So in SMU, we've got the Singapore Green Finance Center. In NTU, there's the Climate Transformation Hub. And in NUS, there's the Center for Nature-Based Climate Solutions, which Audrey and Prof. Koh Lian Peng are part of. But also, we work together within the universities. One good example is the Cooling Singapore project that the 3 universities I mentioned, we work together, including Prof. Jason, who's here. We try to tackle that issue of trying to reduce heat vulnerability in Singapore as best as we can. So by working together across institutions, across disciplines, we can help develop that action-based information that can inform so many of us, both within Singapore and elsewhere, that can inform also the IPCC process.
Thanks, Winston. And I just want to say that we are super proud, that Winston got appointed as co-chair of WG2 AR7. By the way, I also read the AR6 WG2 report, and after I read the summary for policymakers, I got a bit scared, because actually you can tell that Southeast Asia is quite susceptible, and I know Singapore is also part of Southeast Asia. So I think that the kind of information is very, very valuable in terms of getting us to plan better, also how we can contribute as well. Talking about contribution, right? May I turn over to Samantha to share with us what is her view as well. Samantha, over to you.
I'm going to share my view. So hi everyone, good morning. My name is Sam, and in my role, I'm just going to talk about my role here at COP. I'm the Youth Program Coordinator for the Singapore Pavilion. So I think with the theme Collective Action, what do you want to see? So I'm just going to pause here and say, my goal here is to give all the youth in this room and the platform an opportunity to connect and grow with the young at heart. We really see that we are these young people are going to inherit the world. You guys will make the decisions that we hope we have a voice in, and we are part of the solution. And I want to say, as a Singapore Pavilion and across Team SG, we have amazing folks, amazing young people. So I want all the young people, you don't have to be part of the team, to just raise your hand. Come on, everybody. Where's the energy? Yes, young at heart as well. So we have amazing young people here. My role is to give them the voice, to connect you with them. And I think for me, we are here to really accelerate towards collective action. We're excited to hear what's going to happen. They're going to shadow negotiations, and we are here to support. So I'll just pause there. Yeah.
Sam, I love these 2 categories, youth and young at heart. I don't know about all of you, but I'm in the youth category. But I think, Ben, you're in the young at heart, right? Yeah, Mr. Young at heart, please, over to you.
Thanks so much, Yulin. So, in terms of how we see the role we play here, I characterize it by maybe the 3 A's, which actually drives a lot of what we do at the National Climate Change Secretariat. The first A is really about setting ambition. So it's about working with different stakeholders to get them to agree to push an ambitious outcome. So we do that at the national level, but we also need to ensure that whatever we set at the national level cascades down to different people, and that different stakeholders know exactly what role they have to play in order to meet our national goals. So that's ambition. The second A is alignment. And alignment really entails working with different players, both within Singapore and outside Singapore, to ensure alignment towards our priorities. So for us to meet our climate goals, we cannot do it alone. It's not something that we can just look within Singapore, identify a few local stakeholders, and try to achieve that. We need to look outside Singapore. I think that's where a lot of the work that many of you are doing actually comes into play. We need many deep partnerships to move, and that's where alignment comes in. And then the last A is really about action. It's one thing to talk about, this is my plan, this is my target, but if you don't translate it to action on the ground, it really means nothing. It's not going to help the atmosphere, it's not going to help the environment. So our role is really to help bring people together, facilitate and put in place the mechanisms, the frameworks. If we need the incentive support structures to be in place, that's going to be in place to help drive action at the end of the day. Thanks.
So the 3As and the young at heart versus youth, I'm learning a lot here, right? And maybe just a reflection. I mean, we all have worn different hats, right, during our careers. Maybe longer than Samantha, our career. But I would have to say that in my own experience, I've never felt so much collaboration as I have, in the sustainability space. And especially now. But I think I want to just double-click, Benedict, on what you just said. So this year, the COP is about the global stocktake, right? Global stocktake, and that means, how are we doing, right? What's our report card at this point in time? And just based on where you see where things are going, can you tell a little bit more about how Singapore has progressed? Have we done well, across those different sectors? You talked about the alignment part of it. How are we doing from both the public and also private sector? Anything that you can share coming up as well? We'll be grateful for those views. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks so much. So this is the first inaugural Global Stocktake, and the Global Stocktake will focus on three very broad elements. One is on mitigation. Are we doing enough to reduce emissions? Second is on adaptation, and then the third is on means of implementation. And I'll start first with the mitigation aspect itself. So over the last 3 years, since we've announced our first long-term emissions development strategy to the updated one which we did last year, we have moved on several fronts. It's a long list. I don't think I'll do justice to all the work that everybody does, but I'll just mention a few. One is we have laid out very clear goals on how we see ourselves participating and more actively in the regional and global renewable energy trade. So Singapore has said we're planning to import 4 gigawatts of low carbon energy by 2035. This is significant because it represents about 30% of our electricity needs. And we have translated that goal to specific action. So we have signed agreements with various countries, Vietnam, Laos, Malaysia, Indonesia, in terms of looking to expand our access to green electrons from many of these, our neighboring countries. And there's a lot more potential to look further beyond that, because we're in a region with significant renewable potential. The other thing which we have done, actually looking further ahead, is hydrogen, we think it's an important lever for us to eventually get to net zero. It is not something that is immediately deployable in the near term, but in the medium. Yes, yes. Yeah, so we have laid out a national hydrogen strategy that identifies the key sectors which we think can move early, our overall strategy in terms of our carrier of choice, which one we think it's more viable in the near term, where are the near applications. And that lays out, and that's a roadmap for us to work with different players within the scene itself. The other thing that we have moved on significantly is what I term carbon markets. So carbon markets is really about cooperation and collaboration with different countries. We have already signed 10 agreements with various countries around the world. I think if you're around, watch over the next 2 weeks here at COP at the Singapore Pavilion, there'll be more in the pipeline. And a number of them will translate and will take us much closer to actually working with many of these countries on viable projects, which we can work together with them. So that's one key piece. The other key piece on adaptation, we have been looking quite extensively on what we can do on coastal adaptation itself. And I think if you follow the press in Singapore, there have been plans announced on what we are trying to do with Long Island and whatnot. And that's a very, very ambitious plan. But that's a plan that we have spoken about as early as 2019, when our Prime Minister made his National Day rally and said that climate change is an existential issue. He laid the groundwork already, and right now you can see we are translating action we're translating ideas into action. And the last piece, and I really wouldn't want to steal the thunder, but I say watch the space on the means of implementation. MD Ravi spoke about blended financing. We think it's an important piece because many of these ideas, while good, actually suffer from the inability to draw in the necessary financing. when we speak to different countries, different companies on implementing solutions, one of the key things that comes up is that cost of financing is very high. Because in many developing countries, the risk that is perceived is of a much higher order of magnitude, and the rate of return capital owners is demanding it goes beyond what is possible. So we think blended finance, concessionary finance is very important. We are hoping to make some key announcements over the next couple of days. So please, I wouldn't say too much more because I wouldn't want to steal the thunder, but please keep an eye out on this. Please do come to the Singapore Pavilion because I do think a number of these things we'll be announcing it here. Thanks.
So in Singapore words, it's called akan datang, coming soon. Yeah, coming soon. And please come. Yeah, coming soon and please come. Okay, fantastic. I really looking forward to that, and thank you so much for sketching out what are the what's to come as well. Anyone of my esteemed panelists want to chime in as well? Go ahead. Yeah, Cheryl.
If I may, I just want to add on with what Ben said. I think in many of these things is about, for example, technology deployment, to take actions with it. But how ready is the technology and how scalable can we be? I think in order to be impactful, you really can't do pilot tests. There are many pilots throughout the world. Some technology are available, but you just cannot scale it, and it won't bring the returns that you're looking for. So I think in order to help, there needs to be a relook, right, on the entire value chain. But at the same time, we're missing out on one thing which is like the elephant in the room we don't talk very much of. It's about Scope 3. We do a lot, and every company does put commitments around the Scope 1 and Scope 2. But when you look at the Scope 3, effectively, if you look at the smaller SMEs, it is very, very challenging for them to be able to, they are part of your supply chain, but they are also restricted into how much they can actually bring to the table. So I think what is needs is actually beyond just framework, beyond, voluntary disclosure. You have to bring them and up the game altogether, which means either they make it, if not, it will break the entire ecosystem. And therefore, a lot of effort that I think the corporates are working upon is to train the suppliers and to make it as transition steps for them to come on board so that it's not so onerous and you would not drop them from the ecosystem. Because at the end of the day, you only holistically benefit if everyone is part of that value chain.
I agree. Scope 3 is those things that, Scope 1 and 2, yes, more your direct emissions, but Scope 3 is the indirect. It's got 15 categories to look at as well. Only 15. But I just wanted to just connect, right, what Ben has said and what you've said. So Ben, you talked about, making sure that we have that 30%, right, electrons, right, by 2035. I think the ecosystem can really benefit from that in terms of decarbonizing their Scope 2. So I think that's really, really important. But Cheryl, you talked about the other part of the scopes, which is Scope 3 as well. I always viewed Scope 3 as an enabler, an ecosystem developer. And I think the more that we can do these, but they're hard to do, I think can really benefit the ecosystem. Yeah, so over to you. Sam?
Yeah, maybe I'll start. I think I'll talk about it in a perspective of, in my very Singaporean school, GST is like a scorecard, right? And how do we get there? Climate change is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And, I think the interesting thing is that we're all starting from ground zero. You have to go to nursery, you have to go to kindergarten, primary school, secondary school, all the way up. I really see the biggest challenge is with all this technology and innovation, how do we bring people with the right talent? How do we bring young people with the right skills? And I think this is such a interesting space because we have not invested enough in young talent around the world. They are going to be the ones that will implement the targets and goals, but there's such a big lack in capacity and inclusion. It's like we're starting school over again. How do we grow our talent? And for me, this is something I advocate very much for, and I'm glad we have young people in the room because we are here to learn, but there's just so much more that I think as an ecosystem, globally, learning from each other, what we're doing is really what we need for us to have a very effective stock take or mitigation or adaptation, anything. But I think we really need more of that. Yeah.
Looking to you, Samantha, to
who can help and support. Yeah.
Okay. Now I think this one, the young at heart want to talk. This one. Yeah.
To follow up on what has been said so far, one key thing to bring the corollary of what Sam said is education. It's how we build that knowledge capacity, not just in Singapore, but around the region, around the rest of the world, in terms of knowing what exactly the GST entails, knowing exactly what something as, I would say, basic as Scope 1, 2, and 3 are, bringing them on board at various stages, okay, given the urgency aspects. We have to start educating them at school level. In the universities, we are changing our curriculum to educate, to make sure our students are informed enough about what sustainability is. It has to cut across various curricula, it has to cut across various disciplines in order for that to function very well, and they'll be ready, once they graduate and go into the workforce. But also the current professionals right now, in terms of how we can not spread the word or spread the gospel, but bring them on board to make them understand, hey, why is it somebody's, Scope 1 is somebody else's Scope 3? How do you know everything links according to the value chain that Cheryl was talking about? So these sort of programs, they have to be targeted and they have to be done now because of the urgency there. And this is important because when you have everybody on that same page, that is where the next step comes in, building in that community of sustainability, not experts, but concerned, people who are concerned about sustainability. It leads on towards climate action. It leads on towards climate resilience. And that is something that I think that this pavilion, following on from last year in Sharm and this year in Dubai, how we can build this community within Singapore and bring in other people in the COP arena to learn about what we are trying to do here in the Singaporean context.
No, I think that's a very, very good point about how do we make sure that we build that kind of knowledge, right? It's not easy. And what I'm hearing here is that, in school we learn about norms, right? And I see what we are talking about right now is not the kind of norms emerging, but actually norms are already cascading, right, in terms of sustainability. So that's a great thing. But how do we make sure that we're bringing on the knowledge? I think both Sam and Winston said the right thing, is that the kind of upskilling is totally important. And I'll add one more thing as well, because the whole climate information thing is like a hockey stick, right? It accelerates. So how do you make sure that human ability actually aligns with that? I think it's two things. You're right, upskilling, but I think another thing as well is you've got to bring in more talent, right? And one big part of that is us, but at the same time, also is the youth as well. Sorry, young at heart and also the youth, yes. But Winston, you said something about the IPCC and all that, right? Can you tell me more about what you're doing in IPCC? We're super proud of you, but tell us, what's going to come out? Another 3,000-page report? Tell us.
I can't give the game away totally, but I will be speaking in several sessions in the IPCC Pavilion, as well as for Cities Day that will take place on the 9th here in the Singapore Pavilion. But there is that overwhelming interest in terms of having actionable solutions, which is also the theme of this pavilion. We've been arguing the same message for the past 6 assessment reports, over the past 30 plus years, with very little action taking place. That is not to say that no action has been taking place. Ever since the Paris Agreement 2015, there is that belated momentum. It's better to have this momentum rather than inertia, for one thing. But trying to get that sort of inertia to accelerate to that hockey stick that you were mentioning about, Yulin, requires us as scientists to become more aware of the demand of such actionable, of such information, the scientific knowledge distilled into information that can inform action. A lot of good policies are based on, the best climate policies are based on the best available science. So one of the responsibilities I have is to make sure that that science is of robust quality to as many stakeholders as possible. One of the interesting things about this assessment cycle is that we have a special report on climate change and cities. Singapore, cities is very important, and there are so many good examples of good solutions coming out from our little island, our little red dot, that people are paying attention to. And how we can inform the actions that we've taken over the past 50 years, can inform other vulnerable cities, other cities by the coast, other cities that want to see good climate policy that tackles not just adaptation, but also mitigation, and also biodiversity conservation, and also the Sustainable Development Goals, which is a trademark of the work that Singapore has been doing. So that is one of the things that I want to shepherd through for the IPCC, linking into the experience that I've had, as a privilege of living and working in Singapore.
So basically, you're going to be very busy over the next few years, lah. Yeah.
I still have time to come here and talk in the Singapore Pavilion. It's very important, Yulin.
Yeah. No, I think the work that IPCC is doing and Winston is doing is based on science and so important for even the corporate sector, governments to actually look at, digest, and also to take action on. So very, very serious document, and so proud that you are there to help out in that area. I'm just mindful of time, and I know that in the audience you've got people who want to ask questions. Yeah, if I don't mind, just maybe open up to the floor. I'm so thankful that I don't have to answer the questions. I'm only moderating. So, anyone from the floor who would like to ask questions in terms of our esteemed panelists? Questions, please. Over the back, the gentleman. Could you please state your name and then ask your question or direct it to, Andrew. Ben.
Hi, I'm Andrew. I'd like to ask a question about Ben. So Ben, you've been in policy for quite many years, and I think you've did a lot of national roadmaps on technology and things. Based on your views, what do you think, if you had a wish list of a technology that you'd like to create, that, or at least that will help for innovation, as well as to help to enable scale up, what would that technology be and why?
Yeah. So for Christmas, what technology would you like to be put on the table as your Christmas present? Yeah.
Actually, the technology that I would have liked deployed is not a new technology. Because if you look at what we have right now, I'd say there are two major levers that I think hold a lot of promise. One, nature-based solutions. The other, tech solutions, specifically on renewables. And we don't need anything new itself. We don't need something very innovative. If you look at the potential to scale and to deploy just these two technology classes, I think it would get us very close. If not, it would get us to the 1.5 degree goal. The major challenge and the issue is that if you're thinking about scaling up, many countries, many stakeholders around the world face many obstacles in terms of scaling up these technologies itself. So my wish list is to grow what we already have and to be able to drive the wider scale deployment of some of currently best available technology out there. Because if we are able to do that, I think we'll get a lot closer to our goal. And I can see Winston waiting to come in as well.
May I? That's what we do in the IPCC. To get to 1.5 or to keep below 1.5, the available technologies are already here. Nature-based technology, or even in the social and planning policies. So it's already there. There's no need to reinvent this particular wheel. However, that said, how to implement them, as what Ben has mentioned, that is the big challenge. So it's not a science issue per se, it's a human issue in order to get stuff done. So maybe that's the Christmas present that we should have. And you have a lot to say about that. Yeah.
Anyone else from a Christmas present? What would you like as a technology? Do you agree with that, Cheryl? I think you're in this space as well.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think we can share the Christmas present because I fundamentally think many technologies exist. At the end of the day, each geography where you want to deploy it has specific constraints. So how can you put the policies, the regulations in that country, the financing around it, as well as the tech in order to implement it in scale? I think that's what's critical. So you may need to do fine-tuning, but fine-tuning to that particular area, rather than saying reinvent the entire technology altogether. That will take many more decades. What you need is actually scale and speed, and not getting perfection.
Understand. So in my mind, I think what you're saying is that this Christmas present jigsaw puzzle is coming together, but we have a few more things that we need to sew up, right? But I think the technologies are already there, and now how do we just enable it more, right? I think MD Ravi talked about blended financing, and I think we're thinking through the details of this. All right, open it up to another question to the floor, please, for our panelists. Anyone? Tian. Tian over there.
Thank you. I'm Tyrion. My question is for Dr. Winston. So, I mean, every year we see the emissions gap report from UNEP. We also see the ARs now in its 7th run soon. It's almost as though, yeah, we have all this information, but what do we then do with it? Like exactly what Yulin said, right? Sometimes I read it and I go, okay, I don't know what to do with this information, besides feel very sad about it, or how do we translate this into something that policymakers, maybe a more condensed version of the summary, or to corporates who know how dire things are, but what's next?
So she wants a summary of the summary for policymakers.
TLDR, we as an organization, and I'll put my hand up in the IPCC, we need to communicate better. No one has the time anymore to read 40-page executive summaries of 3,000 page reports with 10,000 citations. It's a lot of work. This is where we need to leverage on excellent communicators who are very comfortable with new media, very comfortable with TikTok, very comfortable with Insta stories and things like that, where they can extract and distill the key messages to reach as broad an audience or specialized audiences. This is a skill, I have to admit. I'm young at heart, but I'm not young, I'll be honest. But it's if there are people who are communication experts, who can actually get to the heart, the gist of what we're trying to report, to persuade, to get people involved. And importantly, back to my point about building communities, that is the next challenge that we are in the RPCC, we're well aware of. And a shameless plug, Chi-Yin has been invited to speak at the IPCC panel or the pavilion on December 4th, is that 4th or 5th? Where we cover the underrepresented areas, including Singapore and Southeast Asia, and she was invited because of her excellence in communication. So hat tip to you, and we hope that together with Sam and everybody else, in the youth community here, help us spread this message around and help us to build this community in the future.
Sam, go on.
Yeah, I wanted to share something because I do feel like there is a lot of negativity in the climate space. We are always finding that stuff is very dire, and I see so many young people feel very disheartened, maybe because we don't have voices at the table. So for me, I think I'll go back. If I have a Christmas wish list, I really hope everyone in the world has hope, and just purely because, and a willingness to do their part. I think what we see every day is that we are always deflecting blame. This is not my problem. This is someone else's problem. I think inherently, my wish list is that everyone knows that they have a part to play. They have a certain level of responsibility, and especially those who are at the table drafting these policies. A lot of the weight of the world is on their shoulders. But I hope that there is always hope, and we all know, and we all end up leaving COP28 saying, like, I have a part to play, and I will make an impact. Yeah.
Wonderful. And Cheryl, anything from your side?
I just want to add on from Sam there, right? I think beyond the hope, we need to recognize the complexity of the problem. The reality is, as more companies or more corporates disclose about the Scope 3, you will see the emissions number come up. But you rather prefer that they address and take the bull by its horn and know what actions to take, than rather than said, I don't know, it's a black box and I do nothing about it. So the reality is, so long as corporate understand their social responsibility, what they must do as a corporate global citizen, I think there's hope in it. And we just need the financing, the policies, as well as the technologies to come hand in hand to be able to deliver.
I think you're right. I mean, as we kind of peel the onion, right, it is quite complex. And I would say that, just as an example, Scope 3, there's double counting, undercounting as well. But, that shouldn't really stop us. We should just continue to try to tackle the problem. Any others from the audience that want to ask questions? If not, over there, young lady.
Hi, so I think Samantha and Cheryl talked a little bit about skill sets and building the talent pipeline. I'm just wondering what specific skill sets you think our youth need to have or need to be equipped with?
Wow, that is a question. What is the skill set that we need? To be honest, I think the challenge in why tackling sustainability in corporate organizations or businesses is the fact that there isn't one skill set. I think the challenge is that what we need is to transform internal functions. So I like that question because people do ask me like, I want to be a sustainability manager. What course do I need to get? I think to be very honest, in this current climate, it's all about on-the-job learning. It's all about thinking out of the box. So specifically, if I have to think about one specific skill set, for me, it's adaptability. Because we all are maybe students or we're all in jobs, we need to be adaptable in being able to understand what is our corporate business target, what are the commitments, and how do we internally transform our role. So I wouldn't say maybe a skill set, but maybe a trait that I really see is that we as young people, right, we're in traditional maybe procurement roles, supply chain roles, but we have a role to play in transforming these roles. And as we have a lot of senior leaders here, I always say this in every panel, please invest in your talent. Please let them have a voice at the table. Sometimes we may be young, we may make mistakes, but at least we're willing to try and learn, and we need the support to do so. And I'm sure those young at heart were also young and also went through the same path. So we hope for more belief. So I hope that maybe it's not a specific answer, but as sustainability is complex, unfortunately, I don't think there's one key skill. Yeah.
Ben, over to you.
Yeah, I maybe just wanted to share that we also grappled with this question within government itself, trying to identify the skill sets, the capabilities that are required. And one of the conclusions that we got is that it is not possible to just pin it down to one or two. In fact, we need multiple skill sets. You need to understand the science for a start, just to understand how the world is changing, how the climate is changing, and how that change is cascading downwards. You need strong engineering skills because you need to think about and understand the solution, some of the complexities in implementing these solutions itself. You also need to be very well grounded on finance and economics because a lot of it, as MD talked about, is not just about the science, the engineering, but actually needs to be financed. You need the real resources to come into play. You also need to understand the legal landscape because there is an international global regime. A lot of these are actually governed by legal institutions, treaties, and whatnot. So the legal aspect is also very important. And I can go on. But the point that I want to make is that it's not one single skill set. I want to build on what Sam talked about. It's about having the flexibility, the agility, as well as also being comfortable working in multiple spaces. So when we have hired people to work in NCCS, and we find that the people who thrive the best are those that are multidisciplinary in nature, that have the breadth, and that they are comfortable thinking about the science, thinking about economics, thinking about the engineering, and to be able to flex in different areas itself. And I think that is the wicked problem and the complexity of dealing with climate change. It doesn't sit nicely in one sphere, in one silo itself. It cuts across different silos. It cuts across many different aspects of our lives. Thanks.
I hear you. Yeah, I think it's like trying to be a polymath in some ways as well, right? But to be honest, I think that's the beauty of it is that we do not have all the skill sets in one individual, right? Although we can try to learn, but I think this is the key thing about climate and sustainability is that you get everybody in the room, right, to collaborate as well. As you said, all those kind of skill sets coming together as well. Any other things before I kind of like go ahead, yeah.
Well, since she asked specifically the question to me as well, I'll just say, apart from what Ben and Sam said, I think it's about attributes. If you ask me whom I hire in the sustainability team, I think they need to have passion, be curious, and also creative. Because what is the same old does not really quite work in the business models that we have in sustainability world. So that's quite important. And of course, if I can add on, in ST Engineering, I'm open for internships as well. So I hosted the NUS students last night, so I told them the same, because we're creating a lot more technology, so I think you can learn on the job with us.
Fantastic, very good. Winston?
On the point on attributes, two come to mind if you want to succeed in this space. One is a high tolerance of pain. Really, a lot of the negotiations, a lot of the discussions, meeting with different people, you go into a lot of conflict, you feel a lot of pain in that sense, and how you can tolerate that is an essential skill. But the second thing is always keep a little bit of hope, what we've all talked about in this panel. Yes, I mean, a lot of my students ask me whether or not I feel, cynical, or whether I feel despair, or whether or not anything has happened since Paris. I say, no. Since Paris, we've seen that action happen. I still maintain a little bit of optimism that has steadily increased over time, because I think we can actually do good stuff together when everybody's on board about that. And if there's that community to help things along. So yeah, those two attributes I think are also important if you want to succeed in this particular space.
So, I mean, not to deflect people from coming into this area, but yes, there's a little bit of pain, right? But there's also a lot of joy as well, I think. So I'm going to just try to summarize, because I think maybe I have to wrap up. Okay, so I have 5 points. I have 5 points. Number 1, I learned about that everybody can play a part, because now we're categorized into 2 areas, the youth and the young at heart, right? Thank you, Sam. And I would say that the other area also is that I think we have to confront things which are hard to do also. Talking about making sure that we have energy resilience, talking about the other part of the ecosystem, the scope 3 is important as well, confronting the hard things. The next thing we talked a lot is about how do we build that kind of attributes, right? We talked about different types of attributes that we need. And the other area also is about available technologies. It's already here. The 5th area is that how do we communicate better? I think that many of us in the room have, will need to look into that a bit more. And the last but not least is about hope. But amongst that everyday grind, right, where we think it's painful, I think that it can also bring a lot of joy as well. But before I end off, I just want to ask the panelists, one word, right, that you want to leave with the audience at COP, what you hope for at COP28 as well. Okay, maybe start with you. On down. Yeah.
Partnerships.
Partnership. Okay.
Coffee. Seriously, urgency.
Transformation.
I'd say belief. Yeah.
Well, with that, I really want to thank all my fellow panelists. They've been so great. And thank you for those as well for asking those kinds of really, really important questions. Thank you, everybody. And thanks for tuning in.